A very good evening again to all of you. how do how do how to understand the emotion of students through their facial expressions? A wonderful topic which has a great importance to the teachers, and I'm sure most of you can gauge your students' understanding by looking at their face. Today we have with us Dr. Sandeep Atre, who is an internationally recognized emotional and social intelligence expert and founder of Socialigence, a venture specializing in development of social and emotional intelligence through its specialized online course based on neuroscience and psychology. He is the author of two books, Understanding Emotions Logically and Observing Nonverbal Behavior, and is also a noted blogger and writer. In his career of close to 2 decades, he has trained professionals of more than 50 companies and thousands of students to sort out and excel in intrapersonal and interpersonal matters. Dr. Atre is also one of the founder directors of CHH Makers, a leading coaching and training group of Central India. He has also featured at various prestigious platforms as a management speaker and has also served on various advisory and editorial boards. He has earned repute for his value additive innovation and holistic methodology in his domain. Please take over, Sandeep.
Thank you so much, Pradipta. I'll just share my screen as a presentation. Pradipta, I hope it is visible to you.
Yes,
everyone?
Absolutely. Everything is quite visible.
Great, perfect. Thank you so much, Pradipta. In fact, pleasure being invited for this talk. Thank you, Lata, for being the conducive presence, over the last few days. And I can see we have lesser number of people, but by no means lesser people, and I'm sure that it's never the number, but it's the extent that matters, even for a teacher. And today, I think the teacher inside me is slightly more glad than the speaker inside me. The reason is pretty simple, because the speaker inside me wants to reach out to as many people as possible, which I'm sure I'm doing through the Facebook portion. And then the teacher inside me likes to talk to close groups, talk to smaller groups where you can interact more, where you feel the coziness, where you feel the coherence of the group. So I guess the teacher inside me got his wish true today. And now let's start today's session. How to understand emotions of a student through their facial expressions. This is the topic that we have chosen for the day. But before that, as I begin, why I'm really glad to be here. Well, let me discuss why I'm really glad to be here. Well, I think I've always believed that the quality of conversations in a domain decide the fabric of that domain. And I have always been passionate about quality dialogue, quality conversations when it comes to fraternity. And specifically, that becomes even more important in education fraternity because we deal with ideas. So I'm really glad that today all of us have come together to talk, and that too, a purposeful conversation. What do I mean by that? Well, today we have a certain topic and we'll discuss in a very directed manner, and we'll peel off layers on and about that topic. And I think that's the greatest pleasure that a teacher can get. And if the person is talking to people of his own fraternity or her own fraternity, then the pleasure just grows manyfold. Why? Because then you know that the contribution you'll make will not get added, it will get multiplied. So I'm really looking forward to the conversation that we have just started. Of course, I understand that in that conversation you'll be more or less in listening mode for quite a while. But then believe me, I will stay conversational in my approach, believing that we are talking. So that's why I'm really glad to be here. Now let's come to the topic. how to understand emotions of a student through their facial expressions. The question that might come in your mind is, why this topic? So as you can see, I've highlighted two set of words in this topic. First is understand emotions, and second, facial expressions. So why this topic? Well, first, let me tell you why this topic. Why is it important to understand emotions? Honestly speaking, beneath our intelligent, educated selves, our emotional realities are closest to who we are. And that's why, in order to establish any emotional connection with anybody, it is important to understand emotions. And if you understand emotions, then that connection becomes stronger. Because at the end of the day, as one of the most important neuroscientists of last 3 decades, Antonio Damasio, proved through his studies of patients in which, in whom the centers of logic and centers of emotions, they got severed because of accidents. He realized that those people could intellectualize but could never decide. And the reason was that they did not have emotional inputs. And then Damasio kind of inferred that unless you have a very strong emotional connect with your own logic, you can never make decisions. Similarly, if you do not have a very strong emotional connect with somebody, believe me, you can never convey, or you can never mutually work with thoughts, because at the end of the day, that emotional connect creates the base for any kind of conversation or collaboration. And that becomes even more important if you are a teacher. Why? Because one of my most favorite sayings related to our domain, somebody says that it was from Roosevelt, somebody says it was from Maxwell, but whoever said it, I really love that saying. The saying is that they don't care how much you know unless they know how much you care. Beautifully put, isn't it? They don't care how much you know unless they know how much you care. So if you are not emotionally connected to student, then student just doesn't give any importance to your knowledge base. At the end of the day, who you are cannot be a decider in relationship as long as I do not know who you are to me and who I am to you. And that's why understanding emotions becomes more important. But now the second portion, you'll ask me, why facial expressions and why to understand emotions through their facial expressions? Well, let me come to that. You must have observed, all of you who have been, involved in some kind of teaching role. You must have realized that when you are teaching nursery kids, most of them are expressive. They talk, they discuss, they express their feelings. But as they grow up and as they reach closer to adolescence, most of them stop expressing. And that's when the real problem begins. Because when somebody doesn't express, how do you understand? Of course, there will always be people who will be vocal. There will always be people who will speak a lot. But believe me, that fraction, that percentage would decline as kids would move towards adolescence. There are two reasons for that. One, well, they are slightly distant from you now because they see you in a position of authority. In fact, we also make sure that they see us in position of authority because we also do not want to be taken for a ride. We also want to be taken seriously, which of course is a part of our role. Because at the end of the day, we need to have that enigma that a teacher needs to have. You should be close enough to be seen, but far enough not to be touched. But then, because of that distance, they feel that distance in the relationship as they grow up. And because of that, they do not express. They also understand that if we'll feel displeasure towards them, it could somehow subconsciously affect our evaluation of their studies, be it internal marks or for that matter anything else, grading, etc. So they do not really express verbally what is there in their mind. Similarly, the problem is they do not speak or they do not express their emotions verbally, or they do not connect through verbal expression because they are also self-conscious now. And they do not want to be seen in a certain light when it comes to, impression that their peer group contains, has for them. And because they do not want to be seen in a certain light by their own peer group, they wouldn't want to be that verbally expressive as they used to be when they were kids. And that increases our challenge, because the only way to establish an emotional connection is to understand emotions. But now they're not verbally expressing it. And because they're not verbally expressing it, what do we do? Well, then comes the importance of understanding their emotions through their facial expressions. That's why this topic is extremely relevant, because it's important for us to understand that they don't care how much you know unless they know how much you care. Now let's move ahead. Well, let me start this with a very important line. In a sense, Albert Mehrabian was right. Who is Albert Mehrabian? Most of you who have joined us, I'm sure you are aware of who is Albert Mehrabian. If not, I think this model will surely, help you get reminded of him. This is possibly one of the most popular models in behavioral science. And I said, in a sense, Albert Mehrabian was right, because Albert Mehrabian was trained as an engineer and then became one of the most influential psychologists of our times. Not our times, in fact, he was born in 1930s. But point is, of our times, by that I mean, modern psychology or modern behavioral science. Now, although his studies were grossly misinterpreted across the world by many communication theorists and trainers, in a sense, Albert Mehrabian was right. The model in front of you, you can see that the model says that contributions of message elements in any communication has very clear percentage terms to it. 55% of that communication actually takes place through facial expressions. 7% through words and 38% through prosodic features, that are the vocal cues, as they call them. Pitch, tone, voice, volume, etc., thrust. So the problem with Albert Mehrabian's model is that, as I said, it was grossly misinterpreted. Albert Mehrabian was talking about this model through an equation that he found in one of his studies, where he was studying the expression of attitudes and feelings, and that too in ambiguous communication, where there is inconsistency between what you say and what you show. And then he studied how the listeners interpreted you. And that's where this model came out. But the problem is that more often than not, text without context can be extremely dangerous. And most of the people do not really understand the context behind this model. But yes, they go by the text, and it is a fascinating finding, and anybody would latch upon that. So the problem was that it was misinterpreted. But believe me, in a sense, Albert Mehrabian was right. In what sense? In the sense that 55% of communication takes place through somebody's facial expression, I think, though may not really qualify as a very accurate fact, but still in spirit gives us a wonderful, visualization of importance of facial expressions. I do not agree with this model, because of course he did not really, incorporate importance of gestures, postures in it, because gestures and postures are equally important. But then facial expressions, no doubt about that, they are important. And Albert Mehrabian, through this model, kind of, induced that thought into us. So the point is that Albert Mehrabian was right, in a sense. But now the question is, if facial expressions are that important, and if communication is extremely sensitive towards what face shows, what kind of communication are we talking about here? Are we talking about teacher communicating with face? No, this is not under our today's session's purview. We are talking about what students convey through their expressions. And as I said, because they do not really become verbally expressive anymore as they move towards adolescence, more often than not, it's important for us to be sensitized and observant towards their expressions. And that's where this session comes into play. So we're talking about facial expressions of students and understanding their emotions through those expressions. But now the question is, how many discrete emotions can face show? Now, before we move on, a very important point. I always tell this in all my sessions related to this topic, that words express thoughts and body expresses emotions. And while your gestures and postures can express your emotional state, whether you're comfortable, uncomfortable, whether you're towards or farther, whether you are in a positive mental state or negative emotional state, well, gestures and postures can tell your emotional state, but your emotions can only be expressed by face. Yes, that's a fact. Your emotions can only be expressed by your face, because your face has discrete, peculiar, and very unique configuration of facial muscles for each of the basic emotions that have been passed on to us through our evolutionary legacy. So these basic emotions, these basic emotions that get shown on our face, they finally are common, they are universal, right from somebody in Manhattan to Mumbai, or for that matter, a village called Mandla in a district called Khandwa in Madhya Pradesh. And they'll be same. Even from, Manhattan to Papua New Guinea, they'll be same. For every human child, they'll be same. And which are those expressions of which emotions that are universal and same everywhere? Well, let's talk about them. Do not forget, our face can make more than 10,000 expressions. And around 3,000 of those expressions are related to our emotions. So 7,000 are not really emotional expressions. They're like, twitching, just doing this, or, doing this, or doing this, or doing this, something like that. Around 3,000 are related to emotions. And which 7 basic emotions have universal expressions? If this is what it comes down to, then today this slide actually brings work of amazing scientists, amazing psychologists, amazing neuropsychologists, amazing neurobiologists, amazing evolutionary biologists and evolutionary psychologists. So putting together the works of Charles Darwin, well, his book on expression of emotions in men and animals is considered to be the classic of this domain. From Charles Darwin to Duchenne to Ernst Huber to Sylvan Tompkins to Robert Plutchik, 2 of the major names of last 30 years to psychologists. One is Paul Ekman and second is Wallace P. Friesen. These 2 finally listed down the 7 basic emotions with universal expressions. And those 7 are these 7. Yes, these 7 are our basic emotions which have universal expressions. And these emotions are anger, fear, disgust, happiness, surprise, sadness, and contempt. Yeah. Now, I wanted this to be a part of this because I wanted to show you emojis. At the end of the day, these days, we are communicating more through emojis than our expressions. Well, I think that's ironical, and I also think that's disastrous, but then that's the way it is. You cannot really change all the realities just because you do not want them to be there. So these emojis do not really show these emotions per se. They show the full-fledged expression of each of these emotions. And of course, we'll come to that. What did I mean by that? But then one thing is for sure from this slide, that there are 7 basic emotions with universal expressions, and they are anger, fear, disgust, happiness, surprise, sadness, and contempt. Yes, there are. Now, configuration of emotional expressions. Whenever we look at a face, believe me, every emotion in that list has a configuration of facial muscles, which can be divided broadly into 3 parts. First, the upper portion of the face, second, middle, and third is lower portion. So this upper portion, and specifically occipitofrontalis, is the muscle, set of muscles which are there. So occipitofrontalis, then corrugator supercilii, and then there is procerus, and then these are muscles, zygomatic major, zygomatic minor. So all these are muscles, and out of these muscles, there are this portion of the muscle, as I said, occipitofrontalis, and then this becomes the top portion, first of the three portions, and then second portion is this. So orbicularis oculi, and then there would be processus, and then there would be a lot of other muscles as well, and then the lower portion, zygomatic major, zygomatic minor, and then there will be orbicularis oris, around here. So the point is, all these muscles, every emotion has particular expression in these three portions of the face. I'm sure you can see what I'm doing here. So these three portions. Now the best part is that when an emotion is in its maximum intensity getting manifested through face, then all three portions of the face show that emotion, all three. But as intensity is lesser, the lesser number of parts would show that emotion. So an intense emotion will be seen in all three parts, this way. But if it is not an intense emotion, it is slightly subdued in intensity, then it might actually get shown in only one part or any other part. That's it. If intensity is medium, then it gets shown in two parts. Why was I talking about it in such details? Because today we'll not discuss the expression of these emotions in their maximum intensity. Why am I not discussing that? Well, for the obvious reason that if you apply common sense, you realize that in a classroom, students would never either feel that maximum intensity, or they would never really show that emotion in its maximum intensity. And because they'll never really show the maximum intensity through all parts of faces, that's why I think it will not be useful if I discuss the expression of full-fledged emotions on the face. What we'll discuss today is in fact something different. We'll discuss the variants of these 7 basic emotions that you can expect to see in your classrooms. But before that, an important truth. By the way, do remember that it is never an expression, but a change in expression that conveys emotion. I repeat this line. It is never an expression, but a change in expression that conveys emotion. So if somebody is sitting like this, now that doesn't show an emotion. Well, if he was sitting like this, and if he suddenly does this, then now it shows some emotion. Why? Because please appreciate that your face and its expressions can be controlled or mocked. But the best part is that they can be controlled or mocked, but because they're involuntary, their generation, at the time of generation, they're at their original, authentic best. And that's why for a teacher, it becomes extremely important to be observant all the time. I'm looking at somebody was sitting like this and somebody suddenly does this. Now I understand something has happened to this person. An emotional stimulus has caused some kind of a reaction on face. So it's very crucial that you stay observant and you do not take expression on its face value. You take a change in expression as a proof of emotional stimulus. Okay, so that's one understanding that I wanted to pass on before we continue. Now, let's go ahead and talk about the variants of these expressions. Do not forget, there are 7 basic emotions whose expressions, universal expressions, we are going to talk about today. The variants of these expressions you'll find frequently in classrooms. So we'll talk about them, okay? Let's begin the first one. The first basic emotion that gets expressed is this. By the way, these photographs are from our online course. So, I've chosen specifically those photographs. I know this model, wonderful model, and he said, what kind of faces should I make? And I said, you cannot make faces, just feel the emotion and the face will get made on its own. And that's the way it has to be. Otherwise, you cannot really train somebody by asking somebody to make faces. Of course, you can only make them feel those emotions and faces get made on their own. That's precisely what it is. Face cannot tell a lie. So the point is, here is the first face. And I think you're right if you have thought about this emotion. Yes, it is happiness. And in terms of classroom, this shows that there is a feel-good factor currently in that person's mind in context of what is happening or going on in the class. Now you'll say, it could be the case that this boy is currently thinking about his beloved or his crush, or possibly he has a crush on you, or possibly he's actually thinking about the mischief that he has made in last 1 hour and is smiling about it. Well, that's why I said it is never an expression but a change in expression that conveys emotion. And that's why please understand that a change in emotion is what you are supposed to be observant towards. Okay. So this shows the face of a happy student, somebody who's actually looking at you and somebody who's all in when it comes to the subject matter and the discussion that is going on, and somebody's all glued and all tuned in. I wish, all the faces in a classroom would look like us and would look at us like that. But then that doesn't really happen. It cannot happen. There's no foolproof teacher, isn't it? So if this is the kind of face you see, you can be assured that yes, you are doing something really good, or subject, you are able to convey the magic of that subject to the student. Okay, so this is one face, happiness, feel good. Now let's come to the second one, because this is not the kind of face that you'll show, you'll see, all the time. Look at this face. As I said, this is a face that shows what? Well, this is a face that shows, as you can see very clearly, it shows surprise. Yes. But does it show surprise in its full-fledged intensity? No, it doesn't. Why? Because if it was in full-fledged intensity, then it would have shown in all three parts of the faces. But as you can see, currently it is visible only in this part. Okay, not in this part or this part. Why? For the obvious reason that the person either doesn't feel the emotion in extreme intensity, maximum intensity, or isn't comfortable in expressing that emotion and its expression in maximum intensity in front of you or the peer group, something that we've already talked about. So the point is that if this is surprise, then in classroom terms, what does it suggest? Well, whenever you see somebody with this kind of an expression, it actually shows doubt. If you are explaining a concept, and while explaining that concept, if you suddenly find somebody doing this shows that the person has actually got surprised. The person did not expect what eventually came. And because he did not expect or she did not expect, that means that the person is slightly taken aback by what has happened. And if that is the case, that only means that there is a certain doubt that will creep in. And that's why a good teacher would be very sensitive towards any such expression. And if I, were the person in that classroom, I would have done something very simple. I would have said, well, suppose his name is Robert, and I say, Robert, is there something that you were not expecting to happen? Or is there something that you did not understand? This is what I'm supposed to do. Okay, by the way, Rochelle, if you could just, switch your camera off. Thank you. Great. Let's come back. So surprise, this is surprise, and it shows doubt. So the person has felt doubt. And more often than not, you'll see this expression when the other person hasn't really understood what has been going on. Second is this expression. Now, this expression is very interesting expression. Okay, do not forget this. Because this is fear. Yeah. And you'll ask me, what is the difference? The difference is pretty simple. Not pretty simple, very nuanced actually. That in both surprise and fear, your eyebrows go up. But in fear, your eyebrows not only go up, but the corners, the inner corners of the eyebrows, they kind of take a slightly angular shape. Because this particular muscle, corrugator supercilii, this one, this muscle, if suddenly you have felt some kind of fear, this will happen on its own. Slight. This is surprise, but this is fear. Slight fear. So you see slight angular shape. This slight angular shape to inner corners of the eyebrow. Now you'll tell me. I know what most of the people tell me when they hear this. They say, do you really expect us to look at the person's eyebrows? Well, you don't have to look at it. We are biologically wired to look at their faces. The only thing is, you just have to make sure you're looking at that person. If you're looking at that person and you are being sensitized towards reading what is going on in the face, you'll catch whether it was fear or surprise. Believe me, subconsciously it happens. All of us are fascinated with somebody's face. The problem is we do not look at them anymore, and we do not look at them intently. We should look at them intently in order to understand them. Just imagine when we were kids, we were always so observant about the emotions on our parents' faces. But then after some time, we stopped looking at their faces. And that's when our connection got lost. Same thing happens in a classroom as well. So if you're looking at them, the connection will always remain intact. And that's why this fear, if you spot, that means apprehension. For instance, if I have said tomorrow we'll have a class test and somebody does this, if somebody does surprise, then of course I wanted it to be surprise. But if somebody does this, oh, somebody does this, then I would have surely said, what happened? Urmila, something wrong? Is something, I know you were surprised. It was supposed to be a surprise test, but do you think tomorrow you have some important work to do or what? And she would say, mumble like, oh, ma'am, actually, sir, actually. And you say, okay, outside class, you can, meet me and just share with me if there is a problem. And if the person shares that, tomorrow, his mother or father is going through an operation or something like that, then at least you are able to now do something about it. And that's how an emotional connection got established. Why? Because you looked at the person and you found that there was apprehension on that person's face while other person's faces were, showing more of surprise. This slight differentiation can make an amazing amount of difference in the kind of bond and rapport that you share with the other person. Let's come to the third one because we have got less time. This face, my God, what is this show? Okay, the first one was happiness, second was surprise, third was fear. And now the fourth one, this is called disgust. The root word of disgust is gustair, which means, related to taste. And normally people feel disgust when they see something which is repulsive. In fact, this expression of disgust you can find even in, other mammals. You would see it in a dog. You would see it, in a cat. You would actually see it, of course, in chimpanzees and, all the 4 great apes. Bonobos and gorillas and all of them. You can always see them. Why? Because whenever we see something which doesn't smell well, then we try to kind of make sure that the bad smell doesn't go in, and that is the case with all mammals. So these expressions in fact have some kind of practical utility. That's why they get formed. Or else, why would they be passed on to all these people across the generations? In fact, in surprise, what happens? If you're surprised with something, then, when you do this, what does happen? More light falls on your iris and you're able to get more information inside. And that's why, in surprise, we do this. We don't do this in surprise just because we were wired to do this. We were wired to do this because there was a utility of that expression. I'm not getting into all that because, of course, that'll further complicate the things. And we have only 45 minutes to discuss. So, disgust means, at least in terms of classroom, disgust means what? Irritation. This means I have had enough. Yeah, this means I have had enough. And if I see this expression on somebody's face, I know the person feels that he or she has had enough. What would I do? Well, I think I'll do a very simple thing. I'll, ask that person, is something bothering you? Or have I just stretched the lecture 2 minutes too many, or what? Or is something, hurting you? And the other person would say, no, sir, what happened was I was actually hoping that my answer would be correct, but it is again wrong. At least now I know what the person is feeling. And I would say, okay, beta, just make sure that you do not preempt. Rather, you always understand the process, and please do not expect your answers to be correct. Just make sure that your answers are in the right direction when it comes to process. And if you have your steps all correct, then answer, even if it is not correct, believe me, you'll get numbers for that. At least I'm able to pass on this valuable information to the other person. But when did I do this? I did this when I actually got that emotional input from the other person that the person is irritated, isn't it? For instance, I said, okay, we'll have 10 minutes extra in this session. And somebody said, oh, and then I give a very important motivational input to all of them, who made such a, face. I would say, I understand you're irritated, but believe me, what makes Roger Federer such an important tennis star and a great is that he is best in his 5-setters. And in the 5th set, when the other person is very irritated, he is not irritated. He's still at his calm best. And that's what makes a genius. That's what makes a champion out of him. And please make sure that you also in these 10 minutes are at your most and sharpest, observation. If you can do that for me, believe me, I'll be not only happy, but I'll be proud that I'm teaching future champions. What did I do? I could actually give them motivational inputs, but why did I do that? Because I could get that emotional input from them. And why did it happen? Because I was looking at them. Look, you cannot look at people to feel good. At times, as a teacher, you have to look at them to make sure that you feel what they're feeling. Okay, so this is disgust. This is irritation. The next, believe me, you'll see a lot of people making those faces, specifically, in front of all we teachers. Reason is that, now the competition of a teacher is not with fellow teachers. Now our competition is not with fellow teachers. Our competition is actually with YouTube and, Google. And that's why when you say something, you'll often see a girl or a boy making such a face. This is called contempt. What do you mean by contempt? Contempt means when you feel morally, intellectually, or socially superior to somebody. I repeat, when you do not feel a repulsion. In disgust, you felt repulsion. But in contempt, you do not feel repulsion. You feel morally, intellectually, or socially superior to somebody. When does this happen? Well, when, just imagine the person asked a question and you said, good question, but I think you give me an answer first. Why do you want that answer to come from me? You give the answer. Think about it. And now the student somehow is able to sniff that you are making him think or delaying the process because possibly you also do not know the answer. And then you'll see the student making such a face because he knows that you do not know. Or for that matter, when you are talking about how good a teacher or subject matter expert or a domain maestro you are, and when you are, kind of, if not flaunting or boasting, but at least expressing achievements that you have had over the years, and one of them does this, possibly he or she is currently thinking, if you are really that good, why are you teaching? Why are you not practicing it? And as a teacher, I would have surely given a statement. After I've talked about my achievements, I would have surely given a statement in order to make sure that I now create a buy-in for that person as well. I would look at him and I would say, well, to some of you, it might come across as something you do not understand, that if I'm really such a good science teacher, why didn't I become a scientist? Why have I become a teacher? And to be honest, I became a teacher because I wanted to become one. Well, when I say so, believe me, I've been able to do something about the emotional information that I was open to. That means that contempt somehow has a feeling of criticism. Okay. And if you do not observe this, you do not attend to it. Okay. Now, the second last one is, it has two variants. Why two variants? Because I've already discussed that any basic emotion would get shown in all three parts of the face. So we talk about this first one and now second one. I don't think I need to ask you which emotion is this, because I think most of you already know it is sadness. Yes. Now, why do I have these two faces? Rather, two pictures of the same face. Well, in order to show that you will get variant of these two, you'll not get both of them together for the obvious reason that, as I said, people will not feel the emotions either at their maximum intensity or they would not like to show. So the point is that in one phase, this is the portion, that is showing the, feeling of sadness. Now, if I do this, you can see this. Now this is sadness. You might say it is a kind of, shrug. When it comes with this, your shoulder shrug, and you say, how do I know? But believe me, I'm talking about without shrug. Okay, because then gesture, posture, expression, I'm not getting into that combination, because then it will get very complicated. So if I do this, then this is sadness. If I do this, then this is sadness. Look at that face. Now you'll tell me that this is similar to fear. No, this is not similar to fear. Because you remember, in fear, the whole eyebrow had gone up and the inner corner. Remember that superciliary? This one would get angled. Here, this one is absolutely fine. There is no height it is attaining, and just this. Now this is sadness. This is fear. This is sadness. This is fear. And you say, oh, do we have to make faces to understand that? No, you've already understood the configuration. When you see that face, you'll automatically get that input. What does it mean in a classroom? Typically, it means concern. Yes. When I'm sad, I'm concerned. So suppose, I say that this time we'll have 50% of marks through the Viva, okay, and not through written test. And I see somebody doing this, I see somebody doing this. And I ask that person, well, did it bother you? You got concerned when I said it. And just imagine, he says, so because I'm not very good at, speaking, I'm slightly, one of those shy ones, and I always prefer written test over Viva. And when you said that 50% of the marks this time would be through Viva, I suddenly got concerned that if that is the case, then possibly I'll not score much. I'll say, okay, you meet me outside the classroom in the corridor after the session is over. When I meet that person, I'll say, look, I understand, but believe me, we'll focus completely on content. We'll not focus on your communication. And I also think that your content is very strong. And even if you speak with some fumbles, even if you speak with some pauses or some fillers, it'll be fine, beta, don't worry. Okay. So do not be concerned that in Viva, we are looking for, a perfect speaker. You're looking for somebody who's speaking perfect content. By doing this, I have not just won over that student. I did not want to win over, of course, but I also made sure that I dilute a kind of tension that had occurred because of a change in evaluation pattern in one of the students. And if I can spot it, at least I can do something about it. Okay. So this is typical concern that people feel. And last but not the least, yeah, you can see this. And as I said, it is again this portion that we are talking about more than any other portion. So we are talking about, occipitofrontalis, the muscles, that the set that goes here. Now, when this happens, you see the eyebrows. Eyebrows are very stable. They have not gone up like in surprise or fear. They are here. And in sadness, you remember these inner corners go up. But in anger, it doesn't go, they don't go up. They go down. Just imagine that that's the best part of facial expressions. It is science. It is science, ladies and gentlemen. What I'm talking about is not some, what do you call, some fest or some carnival act. It is actually science. All of that is science. And do not forget, I've written a book on that, Observing Non-Verbal Behavior. So this is what happens, the corners, the inner corners, they go down. And that's why you see this vertical, what do you see? Exhal jisko hum kehte hain na Hindi mein. You see this thing over here. What does it suggest? It is anger. But of course it cannot be anger. Why would that person be angry at you? In fact, it shows displeasure. What do you mean by displeasure? I'll tell you. If you are explaining something to somebody and the person has done this and then does this, then that shows that the person either has trouble focusing right now, did not like what happened, or he or she felt displeasure about something that has happened in last, 1 odd minute. if I would be in that classroom, I would look at that person and I would say, do you want me to repeat this or anything else help you with? And the person would say, no, sir. It's just that, there's too much of sound or voice and noise around. And that's why I felt slightly strange. I say, okay, now I understand. But better don't worry about it. If you'll focus on that noise, then believe me, you'll feel displeasure. Do not forget that in the real world, most of us have to work with that noise, with those constraints. We cannot really focus on the constraints. We have to focus on the constants. And the constant right now is learning. When I said this, I'm sure the person would at some point of time nod and say, sir, I understand. Okay. What did this happen? Why did this happen? This happened because, again, I was paying attention and I could read the emotion. So this was anger, displeasure. Now, before I end, I have already talked about this. It is never an expression, but a change in expression that conveys emotion. So please make sure that you establish baseline, you are observant towards them, and then you finally follow if there is a change. I'll just, repeat what we have discussed till now. We have discussed this much. We talked about why I'm really glad to be here. We talked about why this topic. We talked about Albert Mehrabian's model, and though grossly misinterpreted by most of us, what we can still derive from it. We talked about these 7 emotions: anger, fear, disgust, happiness, surprise, sadness, and contempt. We talked about the facial configuration and, which extent of intensity would, involve and induct which parts of the face or how many parts of the face. We talked about an important truth here. It is never an expression, but a change in expression that conveys emotion because it shows emotional stimulus. And then we talked about these variants. We talked about happiness, feel good. We talked about surprise, doubt, fear, apprehension, distrust, or rather irritation. We talked about contempt, the criticism. We talked about sadness, that is concern. And we talked about anger, that is displeasure. Ladies and gentlemen, again, please make sure that you always observe all of that in context of this one line. Well, I'll not leave you without this one slide because, as I said, I'm a teacher. I really want to make sure that I make the session count. What to do with what you get to know. Now you know. I've already been, intervening. I've already been nudging you on what to do when you have understood. But now let me summarize it for you in case some of you have joined me later. When you have understood the emotion, then either attend to that person, ask, understand, empathize, and then revise, elaborate, resolve the problem, or personalize the treatment. Well, if you can do that, believe me, you'll get that all-important emotional connection that facilitates education. And if that doesn't happen, then believe me, all education is of absolutely no use if it doesn't connect to the person in front of you. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of ABEA, I would like to thank all of you that you were here, and over to Lata. These are, sorry, Lata, these are, my contact points. So in case somebody still wants to know more or connect, then these are the points. Lata, over to you.
Thank you so much, sir. We have 1 or 2 questions that have actually come to me separately. One is that while all of these points are great, and especially now that teachers are teaching online more than ever, that's all that you get to see. Do you have any, tips on how we can do this in an online scenario? Just maybe 1 or 2 top points. I mean, we've all gone through the 7 expressions and those things, but any 1 or 2 points on how, we can make out if there's something happening?
I think, Lata, I understand the constraint here. And the constraint is that I cannot really look at all of them together. Especially if I am in a, say, Zoom meeting, then it is still possible. Yes. But if it is, say, a webinar mode of Zoom, then of course I cannot really look at these people. But for instance, right now I'm looking at Dr. Anuradha Sridhar. Now, when I look at Dr. Anuradha Sridhar, then I suddenly realize now she smiles a bit. And if she smiles, and then whether you have seen this or not, but that smile is not unilateral. And that smile is actually balanced on both the sides. So now I know that Dr. Sridhar is still in for this session. And when I see that, Dr. Sridhar, are you there?
Yes, I'm there. Very
Great.
much.
So, Dr. Sridhar, what is that one thing that you learned from this session?
Well, I have to.
Now look at this. When she said well, you could actually see that there was this flip of this. Yeah.
Yes.
Eyebrows.
So, Dr. Atre, I have to be doing the conclusion. I'm part of Team Abia, so I think I'll reserve the conclusion remark to
now
that session when
now
we finish the Q&A. Yes.
That kind of explains why she did that.
Yes.
So now what I'm trying to say is the same concepts apply everywhere, Lata. But my point is, I think you've already given a very important heads up. And that point was that when it comes to online session, it is easier for you because you can actually see the face.
Just the face. So it's very focused to me.
Just the face. But can you see all of them, all those faces? Well, I don't know, because there are technical or technological platforms in which you can see all these faces at least 10, 20 at the same time. What I would do is, because more often than not, teacher has this liberty, scope and latitude to, choose the pictures or the persons on his or her screen. I hope I could explain that, isn't it? So for instance, if there are 65 people in my batch right now, and technology facilitates only 6 of them in front of me right now, then I have to make sure that I keep flipping those 6. I do not just look at these 6 only, because if I do that, then of course there are people I cannot really attend to. So make sure that as a teacher, you keep switching that screen, and that set of 6 should change all the time, so that you get more emotional inputs for your session. But then for that, believe me, there is a caveat here. And that caveat is that this is not meant for insecure teachers. Whenever there are insecure teachers who want to only feel good about what they're doing, I think that's a harakiri. They'll actually commit, that is almost a harakiri. Because if you get emotional inputs on your performance or you're not a secure teacher, believe me, you'll actually get suffocated by the information that you'll get. So first of all, you'll have to be a secure teacher and then flip those 6 all the time. That's what I'll say about it.
Okay. I have a question from a viewer on Facebook, Sandhya. Sandhya is asking, how do we manage these emotions of children when they're tired and their expressions are just, they have like a very tired expression on their faces.
So you mean that disgust face, isn't it? That disgust, irritating face, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, I think crack a joke. I think any teacher who doesn't have a sense of humor should actually leave the profession right now. I'll be very honest. Any teacher bereft of sense of humor should actually leave the profession right now. You'll say, do you really need sense of humor? Yes, you need sense of humor. And where does sense of humor come from? Have you ever tried to find the roots? Only those people can have a sense of humor who take themselves lightly and take their work seriously. And people who take themselves seriously and take their work lightly, they cannot crack jokes. For instance, if you take yourself seriously and take your work lightly, then you are taking yourself seriously. That's why you'll never be able to crack a joke. But if you take yourself very lightly, but take your work very seriously, which is hallmark of a true professional and a professional teacher, then you will actually be able to crack jokes. And what do you mean by jokes? Currently, what I did in last 30 seconds brought a smile on 2 faces, Lata's face and Dr. Sridhar's face. I mean, was it a joke that I tried to crack? No, there was a sense of humor in it. So I really believe that sense of humor is the most important quality of a teacher, at least contemporary teacher. Okay. And if you find these people are actually showing you those disgusted faces or tired faces, crack a joke, give that broad smile that you had saved for your, marriage reception. And that please make sure that you give it well enough. And then you say something that brings a smile, and then you go back to your work. Do not stretch it. Do not get carried away with it. My problem with most of the teachers is that they get carried away with it. They think they are humorous teachers. No, it's a part of your repertoire. You use it and then you come back to what you were doing. Okay?
All right. I don't think we have any more questions as of now. Anuradha ma'am, you can take it from here.
And that's 6 o'clock. It's amazing. We completed it on time.
Bang on. So I must say, I just read a quote somewhere, and as your session was going on, which says that I'm not responsible for what my face says when you talk. And I think that's exactly what has happened. And you could decide, you see Lata is laughing, and I just read it. So I guess it was a very informative session, Dr. Sandeep Atre. Thank you for being with us today. At ABIA, we have been running a series almost on social emotional competencies in the digital classroom, looking at the mental health and wellness of students. And this also kind of has been one of the aspects when we are looking at the well-being of students, both emotional and mental. And if we can recognize students even with a tweak of their eyebrows, or even how their lips speak when we talk. And like you very rightly pointed out, the simple example of a viva and a student who is not very vocal might not find it very good. So if we can even understand these subtle responses from a student by understanding their expressions, even in an online classroom, and we kind of get to understand how they feel, it will be a great learning for us as teachers. And thank you so much, Dr. Atre, for this wonderful and informative session.
Thank you so much.
It really completed our series, or kind of, not even completed, I would say, because we're going to have more such talks. It just fitted it so well into our series that we're running on the digital social emotional competencies in the classroom.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sridhar.
Yes, thank you. Thank you all our viewers, or I can say participants, for joining in every week, Monday, 5 to 6. It's almost like you've reserved this time for ABIA, and we're so happy that you're with us. And we hope to see you next Monday. And I think, Lata, there's a special one on October 1st. Could you just give participants a little detail about that so they can join in?
We have a session on October 1st on gratitude, because October is associated with joy of giving. So we want to start the month on a very positive note. Please go to our website www.abea.in. You will find the details there and do register for the session. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great evening.
Thank you, everyone.
Yes, thank you, sir.